trip we made was a disaster. It was horrible back in 1995. We had a pretty good forecast from a router in New Zealand and left on that and ended up with 50 and 60 knots for about 5 days. So arrived in Tonga with a crew and met my wife and kids on the beach and said, if we're going to do this again, we've got to get better. And that's where the passion for weather came from. Since that time, we haven't had a bad trip. So 59 boats routed down to New Zealand last year, and not one single bad trip in that lot either. So we've learned a few tricks for the region. Can be a little bit tricky, but we can deal with that a little bit later on. As you can see, we've got the Southwest Pacific up on the screen share. And a little bit of it depends on which island group you're going to be leaving from to come down to New Zealand as to the type of passage and how we handle the weather. Tonga is a good place to depart from. It's slightly closer to New Zealand than Fiji and Vanuatu. And you also get the option of traveling through Minerva Reef. So how many of you are looking forward to perhaps visiting Minerva Reef on the way to New Zealand? Two atolls rather. Northern Reef is an oval, and we have played cricket there. And the Southern Reef is a figure of eight, with the anchorage being in the Eastern Lagoon. The Western Lagoon is something else as far as snorkeling is concerned. So tremendous. Fiji, you basically you're upwind into the southeast trades to get to Minerva, so that's not an option. So we quite often will run the boats around the back of a high pressure system. Anybody that's watched the one we did on weather with Dietmar would have seen a video on the movement of the systems in the South Pacific and how to take best advantage of them. So a couple of things you have to watch out for. You can stop at Siva, which is this atoll here. It's just a reef. It's an open reef instead of the closed reefs like Minerva Reef. But generally speaking, we'll come straight past that and head down on the back of the high in a long, lazy curve to New Zealand. Starts to get a little bit more difficult if you're leaving from Vanuatu, and slightly shorter from New Caledonia, but again, a little bit more tricky as far as the systems are concerned, because you're heading east with the systems. What it does do, though, is it opens up Norfolk Island as a possibility for joining or for visiting on the way south. So if we go back to here, and this is New Zealand. So got a couple of, or got three basic areas where the cruisers get the best cruising. So the Northland area up here, the Auckland and Hauraki Gulf areas, and the east coast of the Coromandel Peninsula, and down here at the top of the South Island, which is the Marlborough Sounds area. Now, I'd say probably only about 10% of the cruisers visiting New Zealand end up having enough time to come down to the Marlborough Sounds, because the best time to get down there from up north is around about now, starting through to the end of March. And that then doesn't leave you a lot of time to get back up to depart to wherever you're going in the Pacific Islands the next year. So we'll start with the area of Northland, the far north. Two cruising areas there: the far north coast and the mid-north coast. So if you're coming into Opua in the Bay of Islands, which is in here, then you open up both areas of cruising. You can, of course, come in down here at Whangarei at Marsden Cove Marina, which is one of the Posse sponsors. So a good place to get work done down there, and a good place to enter the country as well if you're wanting to cruise the areas further south than that. So let's start off with the Bay of Islands, and as you can see, there's a whole raft of anchorages in the Bay of Islands. So coming in at Opua down here in the bottom left-hand corner, and It's a relatively easy trip in from the ocean, past what we call the nine pin at the entrance to the bay up here, and then all the way down into Opua down the bottom. So we had very good marina there as well. The Opua Marina here, or the Bay of Islands Marina here, and a good place to clear in as well. So some photographs. There's the anchorage and the first half of the marina. The second half of the marina has only just been opened about 3 or 4 years ago, and that's further upstream down in this corner down here. So the Veronica Channel and the anchorage in Opua. Stand by. So coming down the coast, I would allow probably a good month to explore the Bay of Islands. One of the things that you probably want to avoid is the Christmas period when every boat in the North Island of New Zealand is wanting to cruise the Bay of Islands as well. And that's actually a great time to go south and down to the Auckland area, because all the Auckland area boats have departed up to other places, Bay of Islands and uh, Great Barrier Island. I was mentioning to Dietmar just earlier on that the unfortunately the area of the Great Barrier Island is currently experiencing a an invasive weed growth, and they don't want people anchoring at there this year. Hopefully, trying to stop the growth or the spread of the weed. So coming down further south, there's a number of anchorages and beautiful spots on the way south to Whangarei. So we'll get into Whangarei now and Marsden Cove. So this is Marsden Cove in here, a great marina and a fabulous haul out. That area there is the haul out area, which is huge. All of there's a lot of subcontractors and contractors there, so you don't need to go all the way up to Town Basin. However, Town Basin is a great stop or a great spot as well. A lot of the cruisers quite enjoy going up to Whangarei. There's a few anchorages down there. Parau Bay. Parau Bay is probably the best one. Give you a little bit of a look at that. So if we go back out up into here, Town Basin is up at the top end of the harbour and right in the middle of Whangarei. How many of you have heard of Whangarei Marina up there? It's an active cruiser hub, very close to the city, and is protected by a bridge down here that swings open. So a very large swing bridge. So we'll just have a quick look at that as well. So that's coming out from the harbour, from the Whangarei Marina. And they're in the process of building another marina in this area here. So there will be plenty of berths by the time you get down here. And that's Town Basin up in this area up in here. All right, come out of there. Now, one of the largest cruising areas in the North Island is south down here in the Hauraki Gulf. So there's Great Barrier Island there. As I say, that's limited anchorage at the moment. But if you are a foodie or or love wine, then Waihiki Island, this island here, has 29 wineries on the island, and you can go and get a tasting at each and every one of them, hopefully not on the same day. So Waihiki Island has two sides. There's the ocean side here with a number of bays. If there's anything running in from the north, it's not quite suitable. Anything right out in the south, it's perfect. On this side, exactly the opposite. Down here into what we call the bottom end is littered with hundreds of anchorages, that literally. Ponui Island and this island here, Rotorua Island. Now, Rotorua has been taken over. There's a winery on there, but they do. It's a reserve, so they've got lots of flora and fauna there. It's a wonderful place to visit and spend the day walking around with all the trees and the birds and animals, etc., etc. Penguins, you name it, they've got it all down there, and it's open as a marine reserve. Auckland itself, if we go into Auckland, there are a number of marinas there. One of which, if you go just a little bit up here, is Gulf Harbour on the Whangaroa Peninsula, and that's another one of the Posse sponsors. So some quite good deals up there. And again, like Marsden Cove, it's got all of the subcontractors and contractors ready there waiting for you to get all the work done that you want to get done. What you will find in New Zealand is that as you go past Marsden Cove, which is around about halfway to Auckland from the Bay of Islands, you'll find that the cost of everything starts to increase as you approach getting closer to Auckland. So expect that in your budgeting. Now, on the other side of the Coromandel Peninsula, which is this area here, we have some wonderful places as well. Again, lots of marine reserves, and but also lots of places to visit and explore. So, Dietmar, have you got anything to add to anything that we've said so far?
Yes. First of all, thank you so much. This is a very nice presentation. And let's get out of this for a couple of things. Let me just go and stop the share. Perfect. Yep. I'm going to put up my presentation on New Zealand just because it gives you a different perspective, and I think maybe it balances it out nicely. Does anybody have any questions at this point about New Zealand, getting in and out, what the restrictions are, anything at all with regards to New Zealand itself?
Yeah, what are the visa rules? Can you remind me in terms of staying there?
Oh, I'm having trouble hearing that one. Sorry, say again.
The visa rules.
Right. I was wondering if we could, in terms of coming to New Zealand for U.S. or EU citizens, what are the time limitations for you or for boats?
Yep. Okay. So the boats get a 2-year TIE, which is a temporary import exemption, and the people get a 3-month visa on arrival, which is very easy to extend for the 6-month period that the boat's likely to be in New Zealand between cruising seasons. Getting extended visas from there starts to get a little bit more problematic, and if you want a really long stay visa, then there are a number of hoops to go through. So basically, going in and out of New Zealand, European and American visa holders or passport holders will expect to get into difficulties or longer term of application of visas if you want to exceed 9 months in any 18-month period.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, the other thing that is worth mentioning is when, or at least it was during my time when we got there, you can always get into New Zealand if you got shitloads of money. New Zealand welcomes even those who are over 80 years old if you bring in $10 million. So if you bring 10 million in, you're basically half the country to yourself. Alternatively, if you're a little bit younger, they have a couple of entrepreneur visas. So typically investments for those under 50, I think up to 500,000 will get you in. And then if you are they have a special classification for individuals that they need, such as scientists, doctors, and there is ways for you to get in. And one of our friends, Betsy, she was a doctor, and so she was all excited to get to New Zealand. And of course, yeah, she got in because she was a doctor, but they put her in the South Island. So she was basically not in the fanciest of areas practicing medicine. And the weather down there wasn't as agreeable either as it is obviously in Northland. So a lot of times going into New Zealand on one of those professional deals can put you into locations where you may not want to be in the first place. So after all of that, basically 2 years later, they left. So just keep that in mind. But New Zealand is obviously a land of immigrants, but it makes immigration, they have a point system basically on what you bring to the table, whether it's money, knowledge, and then with that you can move in. So that's one of the workarounds, but it requires money. And the other thing is the TIA does give you exemption on taxes sales tax of items that you buy within New Zealand. So say you go to one of the chandleries and you're buying something for your boat and you show them your TIA, that now means that you say 15%, I believe, right? That's the sales tax.
15% of what we call our GST, which is a value-added tax.
Yeah. So those are some of the considerations for going to New Zealand. What you do get is extremely really good workmanship, obviously a massive knowledge and array of just maritime services, well-stocked, everything, most dealerships, a lot of people. If your intention is, for example, to sell the boat, one of the ways is to actually keep your boat in Fiji, but work with a dealer in Auckland, because they will often it's almost like if you say there's a boat in La Paz and you're in San Diego, a lot of people just fly there because it's a quick flight to Fiji. But New Zealand as a market is very, very, very well established. And I think it has the highest propensity of yachts per inhabitant.
Per head of population, yeah.
Yeah.
So a good place to, particularly cruising yachts. We've got lots of racing yachts in New Zealand. We've got lots of launches and powerboats, but good quality cruising boats are very hard to come by here. So anybody that's selling or wanting to sell, this is a good market to sell in. The other thing, Dietmar, if we could just give a comparison between Australia and New Zealand as far as getting things done in the country. As far as quality is concerned, probably on an even footing with Australia. Our dollar in New Zealand is 10% less than the Australian dollar. Our GST is 15%, which, as Dietmar has just explained with the temporary import exemption document, you get that rebated off the cost. They don't even charge you for it in the first instance. So no hoops to fly through to get any money back from the government. So we all know how difficult it is getting money out of the government. So the other thing is that our hourly rate for marine trades around about $115 an hour for most of the marine trades, trimmers, etc., etc. That's in New Zealand dollars. In Australia, you're looking at about $140 to $145 per hour for an average tradesperson. So you've got the other problem is that they have 10% GST on their pricing, which they do not rebate. So you can't get any relief from the Australian government on that. So by the time you take the oh, there we go. By the time you take the GST, the exchange rate, and the difference in cost per hour, we're in New Zealand around about 25 to 30% cheaper than getting the work done in Australia.
Also, one of the consideration, a lot of boats that go to Australia never come back because it's a little bit harder to go east from Australia
Yep.
than it is from New Zealand.
Absolutely.
But having said that, so New Zealand has about 2 major islands, 31 minor islands, about 4, maybe 4.5 million people by now. On the way down from Tonga, we broke our boom, and by the time we got to Opua, within 1 week we had the boom already replaced. So it was, it's very. Most people show up there, something will be broken, but the tradesmen are there to help you out. So, as you can imagine, you will start seeing from the water as you leave from Minerva Reef or wherever you are. You're eventually going to see this land of the long white cloud, as it is known locally. What's it known? Aotearoa, I think, John, is that correct?
Aotearoa. So Aotearoa,
So that's
land of the long white flag.
and it's a long white cloud. And the reason New Zealand is so green is because, of course, it rains a lot. But this is really the tip of New Zealand. So this is Cape Rainier up there. I personally didn't anchor in there. I actually drove up there, but as you can see, it's an absolute beautiful subtropical area there. And this is the Q dock that when you come into New Zealand, and this is obviously an old sat image, this is where you're going to queue up. And this is where they're going to take everything off your boat. Anything that is not sealed, not canned, any fresh vegetables, any of that will be completely destroyed and removed because they have such strict biosecurity laws. For those of you who have animals, there's very specific protocols that you need to follow. And for us, our dog wound up going to quarantine for a few days, and then we had her back. But this is basically where you're going to dock up, and then the biosecurity officers will come. And you will see lots of boats in there, lots of cruising boats from all over the world. They congregate down there. These are happy looking biosecurity officers, but they're just mean. They take everything away. They let me keep the rum, but that was about it. This is Whangarei Headlands as you make your way down the coast. I mean, you can see really magnificent, just absolute magnificence formations. And then as you go up the river in Whangarei, this is the Whangarei town basin once you go through the bridge. And this is a typical evening there in Whangarei. Whangarei has lots of tradespeople, and everything is in walking distance, or more or less. It's a small town, but from there you can also easily jump on a bus and go down to Aukland or rent a car and drive around Northland. It's extremely well protected, but it does get cold in the winter. So we were there and actually started getting some ice on the docks. So if you're flying back to the States for the summer, July, August, September are the coldest ones, of course, in New Zealand because it's reverse. And in and around Auckland, there's just some amazing anchorages. Crickets abound everywhere. And when you sail into Auckland, it will be the first time that you'll see a tall city again since either you've left Panama, Acapulco, or San Diego. This is a proper city skyscraper with the endemic tower there. That's the telecom tower. And of course, this bay here, which is the Hauraki Gulf, this is where the America Cup races took place. And so there's a lot to do in and around Auckland. And this is one of the marinas in actual downtown, which is just inside, and you will see super yachts getting rigged. You'll just see so much activity on the waterfront, and they have also an amazing maritime museum. The Maritime Museum in Auckland is just a must-see because it really brings together not just modern-day sailing, but also Polynesian watercraft and the whole expansion from the Polynesians, how they got down to New Zealand, etc. This is us on top there. And then we loved Great Barrier Island. My question, of course, to biosecurity is always this: if you already have the infection with the weed, how am I contributing? I can help you get rid of it, but that's it.
Yeah,
So
biggest problem is picking it up on your anchor and transferring it to the next anchorage. So as far as I'm concerned, like you, Dietmar, the horse is already bolted, so there's no point in closing the stable door.
Yeah, and ironically here, this is like the inner bay in Port Fitzroy. They have this giant wall going up this mountain to keep the rodents out, but they spent so much money, but the rodents are already there. And I'm like, what, the rodent can't swim around this wall? But okay, let's just see. So
just while you're there, Dietmar, the houses on the right hand side of the bay there, That's the start of a fantastic uh, park that you can walk through. There's huge karri trees. There's magnificent views from the top. It's a wonderful trip. One of the really cool features is they built a swing bridge across from the top of the ridge to about the mid height of a massive karri tree that you can walk over the swing bridge and climb into basically a crow's nest on the karri tree.
Oh,
Great
wow.
fun, great walk.
Yeah, so hopefully they figure that out soon, and I'm sure that the people who are inhabiting, because I think there's about 800 people that live there, I'm sure they have some choice words for them disturbing their ability to get to and from Auckland on the ferry.
True, very true.
This is the Man of War passage that is really nice to go through. And in the summer, you can literally, or used to be able to just pick the green lip mussels right off these rocks here and then put them in your pot. There's also a lot of scallops and crayfish in these bays. I'm not sure if they're restricting them still or if they're still available to everybody. I think there's some
Available to
limits.
available to everybody. The Bay of Islands occasionally stops you from taking scallops, particularly because we do tend to get algal blooms as the temperature of the water increases. But out at the barrier, you go very quickly from shallow to reasonably deep water. So at 30 feet or 25 or 30 feet, the water is clear and cool. So you probably will need a wetsuit if you're coming down from the tropics.
Yeah, and this was one of my favorite anchorages. It was not so close into town. It was a little further away, and because during summer this Port Fitzroy gets quite busy. Let's put it this way, because it's 33 miles from Auckland, so a lot of folks head there. And then you can always tell when it's a popular spot based on the amount of dinghies and the fuel dock. And in the first week in January, they typically have the Great Fitzroy Mussel Fest, which is highly recommended. And this is summer, as you can see, and people still have hats and jackets on. So this is one of those really must-do events down there. On the backside is Claris. This is probably one of my favorite places. It's just a beautiful site, absolutely gorgeous. You can rent a car and then drive across the other side, and you can just see this is just absolutely beautiful places. Anyhow, so this was just a little bit more of an on take from what I experienced there. We did go out to the Mercury Islands, and the Mercury Islands on the tip of the Coromandel have a great party every year where you get free sausages, I believe. And
Yeah, run by the guy that won the America's Cup for New Zealand in the first place, Sir Michael Fay.
yeah,
So,
so it's a great spot to go to. They also shoot off. There's a rocket company in New Zealand that got a contract for the U.S. Army, and they
Bahia
shoot.
Peninsula.
Yeah, and they also shoot off some rockets for the U.S. Army, some satellites that go into outer space. And the way they do it is there's no safety requirements because it's basically 7,000 miles of open ocean. So they just launch them off, and there's your safety distance. So that's on the Mercury Islands. The Kiwis are quirky, fun people. They're very chatty, and if they ever get on your nerves, just tell them who landed on the moon first, because they'll always remind you that they got to the Mount Everest first. So it's a fun give and take with them. Anyhow, anybody else got any questions? Anything they want to know? Anything about it? About New Zealand? Of course, another way to do it is you go there and then you rent one of those camper vans and you explore the North and the South Island. You can do it in about 2 weeks. And the amount of sheep and cows I think they have the same amount of cows as humans, and they have, I think, 20 to 40 million sheep. Is it now down to 20 million sheep?
Yeah, they're concentrating more on beef now. There's probably 20 million cattle and 50
Yeah,
million sheep.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
so
5 million human beings. So we eat a lot.
yeah. The other thing is, of course, there's great white wines. White wines that's what they're known for. The South Island, the Marlborough Sound is really known for some of their good Chardonnays as well. There's a big foodie culture. They have great weekend markets in small little towns that are very quaint. It's just what you expect, and it's a very friendly and fun place. We spent 4 glorious summers down there, although they were short. Give yourselves 2 months for warmth, and the rest will be a little bit more subtropical.
I think we'll employ you as an ambassador for New Zealand, Dietmar. That's wonderful. Do you like
Yeah.
red wine, Dietmar?
Yes, I do. But, I grew up in Chile, so there was a